Mark Rogers TV back with you as we continue to carve out all the schedules in college football for 2014. Among the Power 5 conferences, we've made our way through the Big Ten and the SEC, and almost we're getting our way through the ACC. Next up, a new member to the ACC as of last year, the Pitt Panthers, the old Big East team, and before that, an independent in the East. And their scheduling kind of still reflects that to a certain extent. Fortunately for college football fans, the Pitt Panthers will renew a long-standing rivalry going way back with the Penn State Nittany Lions, but not in 2014. The Panthers coming off a 7-6 inaugural campaign in the ACC, in which they went to the Little Caesars Pizza Bowl and disposed of Bowling Green 30-27. The non-conference slate has one big team on it, so they get the pass here. Okay, Pitt starts out with Delaware at home. Then they go to Boston College, so they dive right into ACC play with the non-division game against BC on the road in Week 2, September 5th. I believe that's a Friday game, Friday night game, national television for Pitt and BC. Then they get back to non-conference play with Florida International, Iowa, and Akron. So they actually go on the road to Florida International and play that game in Miami for recruiting purposes. We understand the slant there. Iowa's at home and Akron's at home. So for Pitt, not a daunting non-conference schedule, but we give the Panthers credit for playing the Iowa Hawkeyes, a team that is slightly better than they are. I don't think there's any question that Iowa's better than Pitt. Regardless of what happens here, Pitt does have the game at home. It would not be a shock to anyone if Pitt pulled off the minor upset. That game's probably going to be a pick'em game, depending on what happens the first few weeks of the season. Pitt needs to arrive at their home stadium at Heinz Field against Iowa in Week 4 as an undefeated football team. Again, they've got Delaware at home. They go on the road to take on BC. So we talked about it before in the ACC. Throw a blanket over a number of teams. After the big one, then the lesser big one in Clemson, and then Louisville. And another team's going to have to step up and distinguish itself amongst Virginia Tech and Miami and Pitt in that division. Duke did last season with 10 wins. You've got some other teams in the fray in that Coastal Division as well. Pitt, assigned to the Coastal Division, makes no sense in the ACC, but little does make sense in college football these days. So again, arrive at the Iowa game at home at 4-0 or at 3-0 at that point, and Pitt should be in good standing to get back to postseason play again this coming season in 2014. Okay, so those are the 4 non-conference games. Delaware at home, Florida International, Iowa. Then they've got Akron at home the week after the Hawkeyes. Again, 3 out of those 4 at home. Got to go 3-1 minimum. They could beat Iowa. That certainly would not be a shock. So the Panthers have a chance of going 4-0 non-conference. Definitely have to win 3 games there. Then after the BC game in Week 2, they get back into ACC play. As we pointed out, it makes a world of difference who these teams play in the other division. So for the Pitt Panthers, they could be playing Louisville, a new, very prominent member of the ACC's other division. They could be playing Florida State and Clemson. They don't play any of the big 3 in the other division. They've got that game against Boston College on September 5th at BC. Then they've got the second to the last game of the season taking on Syracuse at home. So those are their 2 non-division games, both very winnable, very comparable teams. Again, BC, Pitt, Syracuse. Right now, things could turn out where one of those teams is 8-4 and one of those teams is 4-8. But as it stands right now, going into 2014, those are very comparable football teams. So Pitt has to split those non-division games. They really have the opportunity to win the 2 non-division games again. Should take advantage of not playing Florida State, Louisville, and Clemson in the other division. All the division games line up like this. It's not daunting, but here's a team, again, that could lose like 4 or 5 straight, or they could win 4 or 5 straight. Most likely, they're going to play about 500 in the ACC against this schedule, in addition to BC and Syracuse. Pitt's got their in-division foes after the Akron game, so they're done with non-conference play at that point. They start off October taking on Virginia on the road. Then they've got Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech at home, Duke at home, then North Carolina. So that's a pretty decent stretch of football where Pitt goes through the meat of its schedule and determines whether they're a contender in the ACC. Again, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Duke, and North Carolina. 5 football teams that are comparable to them. I would consider right now Duke, Virginia Tech, and Georgia Tech to be better than Pitt, North Carolina to be better than Pitt. So they could come out of that stretch at 1-4. Let's say they go 2-3. I think they're still in decent shape for a bowl game, because then they finish off against Syracuse and then they travel to Miami to take on the Canes at South Beach. So again, here's the Pitt schedule. All the division foes, I'm guessing that they go 2-4 in the division. Got to win the other 2 games non-division against Syracuse and BC. They go 4-4 in the ACC. I would think that would be a decent showing for the Pitt Panthers. Go 3-1, maybe 4-0 out of conference, and they're suddenly an 8-4, 7-5 football team looking again to go back to postseason play. All right, Pitt fans, where are you? Let's talk about the Panthers and the upcoming 2014 schedule right here on Mark Rogers TV.